Ready?
Actually, this is off. Good to go.
All right, being at 12 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes of the previous meeting?
Yes, sir.
If there's no discussion, we'll take a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody. Financial reports, did everybody get a chance to look at those? Anybody got any questions for?
I just got a few notes here. There's no income for Fund 225, so there's no income statement in this packet. There's an approximately $45,000 increase in the cash operating assets. That would be the first budget allocation for 2021. And then on the loans, all loans have payments being made on them, and Gibbs has changed ownership, and that's why they paid off the rest of their loans.
Nice.
So next we'll move on to our annual report. Did everybody get a chance to look at that?
Yep.
So, sent this out a week ago so the board could get some time to review it before today's meeting. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the report?
I actually kind of like it. It's nice to have that.
Okay.
There's some things I forgot we had done, honestly.
Right.
You get doing different things and you kind of forget.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been kind of nice.
I think we're planning on having this submitted to the council if it's approved by the board today.
Okay. So if we have no discussions, we'll take a motion to approve that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Yeah, I do really, like I say, I do appreciate it. That is.
Yeah. This is the first year I've done annual reports, so any feedback is appreciated. If you feel like there was something you wanted to see, just let me know, but it's good to hear you feel like it.
One question just for you was on the tax abatement paid to Gibbs Partnership.
Yes.
Would that be affected at all with their selling
That's
out?
something I'm gonna look into. I think I've got their tax abatement agreement. Whether that gets transferred to the new owners or not, I'm not sure, so I'll have to figure that out.
Perfect.
Next, we'll move on to our 2021 priorities.
Let's see, here my name's here. So, everything's kind of laid out in the memo with some prospective priorities for the EDA board to consider. The list is by no means exhaustive, so I'm interested to hear if the board has any other ideas for priorities for this year, in addition to what some of the other priorities that we got in the memo. So, yeah, what I would like to get out of this discussion is just for the EDA board to determine priorities and objectives for 2021, and that'll help direct my work here. And then possibly at the next meeting we can talk about what specific things we want to achieve for each of these kind of broader goals we set for the year.
And I'll just mention that one of the ones I brought up to Nicholas was this Hinterman Concrete, because I think that's a site that has potential for economic development because of its location and its size, and it does need a lot of work. You know, obviously the bright removal is serving multiple purposes for the city council. It wouldn't just be economic, but it would also be an improvement to the quality of the area. So that's one I've added on there. So I know we talked a little bit about it last year, and it's been discussed before at EDAs and councils. So
We definitely would need a grant to clean that up, just from the discussion I've heard before of what's back there.
yeah, there's a lot of I did walk the site with the public works director, and there's definitely a lot of issues. But that's why it's probably more than a one-year process. Just something
Yeah.
we wanted to maybe get started looking at is because we need to acquire the lot, and that would require some effort too. So.
Because we wouldn't even be able to apply for anything unless there was ownership, right?
Right.
Probably not unless it was in collaboration with a private, if the current owner would collaborate with the city, there's ways you could apply for some, grants, but typically not, so.
Would we want to contact the current owner and see if that would be something that they would...
Well, I think, Nicholas, you have contact information, do you not?
I do. I believe from the Ben Call project. So that's something we can reach out, just, feeler email to see what he's open to discussing with the EDA. Because I know if the city was to take ownership of the property, that would open up the prospect for a lot more grants to clean up the site. And then, once that was done, then the EDA could have the site to, determine what kind of development they want to see on it. Especially since it's a great location, it needs that cleaning up.
Yeah, well, I'm sure as the owner, they might want to have the city's help to get it cleaned up so they could sell it and make a decent profit.
Yeah, there's that possibility too.
Yep.
I was just wondering, under Community Foundation, do you know where things are at, or have you had any further discussion with Janet Sinnen on the donations that they have to try to fix the wall up at the park?
Yeah, I was going to talk about that a little later, but I have been in touch with Janet Sinnen and Gerald Geese about possible grants to help with that. So I've looked into one this morning. I've been in touch with one of my contacts at People's Co-op, and then they sent me a list of other grant possibilities to consider that I'll be looking at later this week and next week as well.
Is that the only way for contributions from the city, is grants on that, or is there any other funding? I know she told me that they have designated from individuals $22,000. That's
Okay.
a lot.
Yeah, I mean, so the city would be looking for grants, but maybe as far as budget, I don't think...
Well, I mean, there are a couple of things under that, if you don't mind, Nicholas.
Sure.
So Community Foundation, that is an effort that I know at the Park and Rec Board, which is Janet's a member of, they have talked about seeing if CASM could reestablish its Community Foundation. So previously, there was a Community Foundation, I guess, which funded, I think, the city welcome signs. And at that time, it was kind of wound down. A lot of communities in southern Minnesota work with Smith out of Owatonna, the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, to found those community foundations. And it would seem like it would be a good umbrella organization for efforts like this. I know one of Janet's concerns has been the nonprofit status, and that some folks want that so they can donate via 501c3 kind of a thing for tax write-offs and whatnot. But so that's one of the reasons that's on that item, would be to see if there's any institutional support for reestablishing that. And then secondly, I know that the city council did address this, and they've talked about it, basically their approach is to see what the private investment is before they make any, decisions on what kind of, help would be provided there.
I think that's if you got 22,000, that's quite a few people that evidently have an interest in trying to preserve that.
Yeah, and I do think that the city council certainly takes that into account when they evaluate these projects, and I know there's a variety of different possible funding sources. I did contact our state representatives, Senator Senjum and Representative Quam, related to seeing if we couldn't get a legacy grant through the actual legacy bill that gets approved this year. And that's one of the, the nice thing is that Senator Senjum is on the legacy committee, so depending on the amount of money we're looking for, it should be, I would consider it to be somewhat low-hanging fruit for us to be able to get some sort of, if it's a smaller amount, 30,000 or something like that. Realistically, they're going to be dealing with that as they go forward in the legislative session, and they've got a lot of things they're working on too. But yeah, I mean, I think, the mayor can speak better than I can toward the council's opinion, but I think the more contributions they have on the private side, the more likely they are to move forward with the project.
The Smith Foundation, aren't we too large for that?
No, we are not. No, Smith has helped create, so what would happen is that we do fund, we find, we created ourselves here. They are sort of a partner to help you get off the ground with the structure. So, no, I don't think that Smith is, there's community foundations they helped start in Owatonna, Waseca, and communities that are larger than Castle.
I guess I was thinking of the one that Tim Penny's involved with.
No, they work with other cities of our size too, so, yeah.
You might be thinking of like the REV program, which has a population limit. So there are some SMIT programs that CAS is too large for, but other services would be.
Yeah, we had talked to Tim Penny about it, and it was 5,000 and below.
And that, you know, that was one program that I participated in Blue Earth with the REV program, and that was for 5,000 or less. But community foundations, I mean, we could start one today if we wanted to. You know, you'd have to get,
Well,
the nice thing
I'm not
about...
saying start one, I'm talking about participating in something that's already there.
Yeah, and we don't really have one right now
No.
in the city of Casson. So it would be a restart if they were gonna do the community foundation. And the reason that they work with Smith or with, for example, Rochester Area Community Foundation, I think has sponsored a couple other ones also. They've kind of got little sister branches in some small cities, is because they help provide that structural know-how to get it set up, and they help invest funds that are donated and that sort of thing, so.
So if the EDA wanted to, set this out as an objective for 2021, I'd probably reach out to Smith and ask them to, if they've got materials or a presentation that they can give us on how to help set up a community foundation in Casson.
Because the one that we had, excuse me, I was on that, Dwayne was, I think, the president of it, and it's been more than 3 years, but the 501c3 is expired now, so, but we have all the articles and that of what it was before. I just had a bank account at one of the local banks. They just shut it down. There wasn't any money left, and nobody was willing to do the fundraising for it. So, I mean, it'd be pretty simple to start back up, just have to reinstate the stuff, but it was, I think the big problem when they first started doing it was, whenever you have that outside help, which is great, right, but there's gonna be a fee involved with that they're gonna have a percentage of what you raise is gone. And the stuff before, they just started on their own, and I think, Cam Telecom helped out quite a bit, we met there, so. I definitely think it's a vehicle that we need in town for things precisely like the wall.
Yeah.
And as far as the council's concerned, I think the general mood in the council is the project's gonna get done. We just need to figure out how to do it. So, and last year, it was gonna get done last summer, but then with COVID and everything hit, and it got punted a year, so, so we'll get it done, just a matter of how. Yep.
Yeah, I guess I think a community foundation is a good concept. I think, another thing I guess I would maybe go hand in hand with that is if, have we had any, like, those Blandon Foundation cohorts through Casson before? I was just thinking if we start up on that, you kinda, so that Blandon Foundation up in Grand Rapids has like a rural community leadership program where they take a cohort from different communities and they put them through this training, leadership training, project training thing. So like I did it actually back with, I went with Blooming Prairie, Medford, and Ellendale a few years back, and it's a good program. It works well if you have kind of a group of people that seem like they could potentially be interested in taking some of those leadership roles, because the problem with towns of our size and smaller is that there's so many leadership roles that a community needs for just different things, like a community foundation opens up one of those roles. But it seems like you kind of get the same batch of about 50 people that serve in every last one of those roles. The nice thing about their programs, it's geared towards people you think might be open to it, but maybe just haven't had kind of like that initial connection into the process, or maybe don't feel confident enough, and so it's really good for kind of bringing some new people into that population of leadership positions. But anyways, I was just thinking if we're going that route of community foundation and you need people that are gonna drive it forward, that'd be an opportunity to try and, even, because I think you send up 24 people, every cohort, I think it's 24 people. That'd be an opportunity, I think, to, if you get 3 of those people interested in community foundation moving forward, then, that helps a lot, something like that, so.
Tom, do you know, does Manorville have do they have a community foundation or no?
Well, Manorville is a town of many nonprofits.
Right.
But no, I don't know that they have a specific overarching Manorville foundation. There's like the Manorville Restoration Association,
Sure,
the Manorville
sure.
Welcome Center, the Art Guild,
Yeah,
all
bunch of
these-
different ones.
So basically, they just, instead of having an overarching one, they have, I guess, an individual nonprofit for each thing.
I think if we did do something like trying to go for Blandon, I think we
Yep.
would probably try to reach out to like Manorville,
Yep.
maybe Dodge Center, Byron, because it's kind of that larger group than, like you kind of did with Medford, you know?
Yeah, I think you'd be, I mean, I think like the one thing we found with the group of those all three of those schools was they didn't necessarily have any, other than proximity, there wasn't like a unifying thing with
Okay.
them, whereas Cass and Manorville has the school district, we have the sewer connection, we have the trails. That would be a supernatural one. With Blooming Prairie, Ellendale, Medford, I mean, all three of those towns are, I mean, basically the three of them add up to about the size of Casson. So Cass and Manorville would actually be a pretty natural.
More natural fit, maybe.
fit.
Sure.
And I think too, you know, if we're thinking about, and kind of keeping on that line of Cass and Manorville, cooperation, I think about like Highway 57 reconstruction, that's supposed to happen here at some point, once it's not punted in, you know,
Right.
but then it'll happen in Manorville too, and I think that traffic flow impacts both towns, whichever town is going, you know, when one town's going through it, we're gonna, you know, the next town's probably gonna feel it somewhat. That would be one area where I guess I would, one thing, for Highway 57 disruption, I'd like to have some planning ahead of time on that, and I think a part of that planning probably should be a little bit of joint planning with the Manorville, or Manorville, whatever we are, equals, EDA, Manorville EDA guys.
They don't have a Manorville, isn't it?
No, they do, Manorville EDA.
Oh, I thought it was just the county EDA over there.
So the county EDA exists, that's absorbed back up into the county board functions as that EDA, but Manorville, as the city of Manorville, has its own standalone EDA too
Oh,
for
they
the
do?
city. But they're, it was a little confusing, because the county seat is in Manorville, the county EDA also met in Manorville at the courthouse, but, no, they're usually, Tuesday evenings or something?
Think so.
So it's like, I think like tonight, they probably have a meeting, actually. Like, usually they meet at, it's like
Who's
7
on that
o'clock.
board? You know anyone?
Troy Stafford, Chuck Bradford, their mayor, Laura Qualley's the CETA person for them, right?
I think there's,
it's been a while since I've been over there. I guess
Probably on their website.
It's on their website, I'm sure.
I'd been to one or two meetings in Manorville, but I can't remember all of the board members. But yeah, that could be a possibility for collaboration, is identifying these kind of specific projects that impact both. So, you know, possibly a community foundation, but definitely Highway 57 reconstruction will impact Manorville, even though that it's not happening in their city. All of the traffic flow really comes from the south in Casson.
Well, I think the following year, or 2 years after, basically like after the Castle one's done,
And that's
Manorville
them.
gets reconstructed. And the thing is you're gonna have basically the same byway is being disrupted, and so if we're gonna talk about maybe like coordinated signage for our businesses, because what I'm concerned about specifically is, you know, I'm sure another priority of ours is getting through COVID and hopefully returning to some level of normalcy in operation, especially for your retail, restaurant-type businesses. And the thing is we're gonna be coming out of COVID, and then we're immediately gonna tear up Highway 57, you know? So like, that's kind of where I would like to, I think some of that business disruption that we're going to feel with Highway 57 already probably want to start thinking about some of that, how to best assist them in the meantime, can pilot that as we're coming out of COVID, hopefully, but then keep it running through, hopefully it's applicable as well for the highway disruption stuff. But I think with the highway disruption piece, you know, you probably want to do signage on both sides, 'cause we're being impacted by the same byway, so.
Can we get from MnDOT information exactly how they will proceed as far as shut down blocks?
We're gonna control the project. Our engineer, we're gonna let the bid out, so we won't know till,
Yeah, I mean, I think phasing-wise, they're looking at maybe 3 phases.
Yeah.
That's what I've been told. And, you know, kind of be like
He's saying
in...
they, and he's saying we.
Well, they is when he means our engineer and, because
Yeah, I mean, you know, realistically, the
The
city
city-
engineering firm is the one that's working with MnDOT to design the project. And, you know, MnDOT's funding the project, and they will have some of, you know, some of those criteria, when they put it out for bid, it'll have phasing. It'll say, here's how we want it to be phased. And I don't know exactly how that will be done quite yet. I know, at least I haven't heard that yet.
that we haven't heard that yet.
So, I mean, but as the project moves forward, I mean, what I've heard theoretically is that it'll be done in phases. So you'll have, because obviously we know that, you know, the 34 roundabout is gonna be one of the most difficult, you know, parts of it, and then the Main Street roundabout. Those two are, you know, probably the most impactful in terms of traffic flow. The rest of it is kind of a regular street reconstruction. And I don't know, if you were on one of the streets, I think, that was reconstructed maybe, or not?
on Third, Fourth, and Fifth, yeah.
Right, so I mean, you're kind of familiar how that went. With the regular street construction, it's not as difficult because they can kind of do it in parts. So you still have some traffic flow, you know, you can gravel it off and people can still, local access will still be there. For the roundabouts, I mean, they're just closed and, you know, you just can't go through that intersection. And so those are gonna be the most impactful parts. And the south end is really where it's gonna be the biggest impact, I think. But, I don't have the information right now, but absolutely we can get that information as it gets ready to be done in this fall.
So has that changed? The city has decided to pay for the roundabout that MnDOT was asking?
City's not paying for the roundabouts.
But
No,
we're
the-
still gonna have, so then MnDOT's gonna pay for 2 roundabouts?
Mm-hmm. That's right, as far as we know.
As far as it is right now, the whole project was basically put on delay.
Yeah.
But when they first came back from the project and said they'll do this, and they came back and said, we'd like to put roundabouts in, and I was at that meeting, I think you were here then.
Yep.
And we basically said, if you wanna put roundabouts in, you pay for them. So that's where it's at right now.
But there was not a yes, not a problem?
They're continuing with the engineering on it, because we're not gonna pay for the construction of the roundabouts. So,
Yeah, why would we?
yeah. So,
That's the plan now.
Can I just ask, where's the crosswalk gonna be for Main Street with the roundabout?
Well, the design components, actually, the way it'll work is that the road narrows as it comes towards the roundabout. That's pretty typical, and so the crosswalk will be designed to cross at those narrow points.
So it'll be moved, sort of in the middle of the block or something?
Well, I mean, you know, you'll have the roundabout design, you'll have the circle,
Further to
and
the
then
west.
as it narrows, yeah, it'll kind of, the road kind of comes, it bifurcates, and then that's where the crosswalks will be.
So you'll have crosswalks that are on the west and the east, but not the north and the south?
Well, I don't know that we finalized that. I expect to have crosswalks in all 4 directions.
should be able to still cross the road at all 4, otherwise you
That would be
can't
what I would
get across
anticipate, so.
So it's just a matter of, it's still in the design stage yet,
Yeah.
so we won't know.
there. Yeah, no, there's still gonna be ways to cross all 4 ways
Yeah.
there. You have to be able to get across pedestrian. And that was one of our challenges to them was, great, you wanna put roundabouts in, pay for it, but then we still want this, and you got a railroad to deal with, and that's what people that are smarter than I am get paid to design, so, yeah.
All right.
Way smarter than I am.
We'll move on to our,
I think
We need to give Nicholas some direction, though.
We need priorities. So, I'm saying, I think, what I'd like to see in priorities is some combo of, dealing with COVID, prepping for the Highway 57 reconstruction, and I guess I'd be interested in community foundation so long as we also talk about some game planning on leadership development in the community, so.
And I think with Community Foundation, that's a good priority to have, because it's not as intensive. Kind of really, to start, just requires reaching out to different organizations to see what opportunities exist to help set one up here. So, I think that one we should definitely look into doing.
And I agree with that, and we need the direction on Because before the foundation was created, because they wanted to put these signs here, right? So they're gonna get donations. There were a few donations, but the city liquor funds basically donated most of the money for that and it shut down. And when the foundation started, they asked some of us to be on the board, and we're like, okay, we can help with that. But then all of a sudden it became, who was gonna do all the fundraising for this foundation? And my whole thing about that is the people that were on the board were already doing 50 other things.
Right.
And to me, if I'm gonna fundraise for something, I wanna know what I'm fundraising for, to have specific projects, like Save the Wall, or this, or that, or whatever it might be. I don't wanna go out and just blanket, hey, fundraise for the City of Casson Foundation, it'll pay for something in the future that you might like. There was just, we need that direction from that, we need designated funds set up for certain things. Even if it's a festival in the park, if I wanna leave $10,000 were in there, and they could take, set up that designated fund, that 5% of that fund goes to help pay for the festival every year, you at least know what you're donating toward, instead of just a general thing. So I think some direction from someone that does that would help make that viable and last longer with that leadership. Because before, it just turned into, let's raise money for the foundation, and I was like, well, what are we raising money for? Nobody's gonna donate if you don't have a specific thing to donate for, so.
Well, you can have sub-funds, and that's how you'd want to
Right.
set it up,
Yep.
right? You'd have a larger fund, but then you'd have sub-funds that deal with
Some designated
ongoing
specific-
projects, like Festival in the Park's a good example of one that could be useful every year.
And then the Highway 57 thing, I think absolutely we need to be proactive on that, now that we've got the extra year, especially for not only the businesses, but there's, people living there, and there's businesses that are in homes, and the parking along Maryville Avenue that's not gonna be there anymore, and all that, just being proactive as an EDA to say, hey, here's keeping the information flowing once we know all the information, but to be proactive in that. And then I do think we need to approach the Hinterman Concrete, owners, just to see where are they at, do they have any plans or no plans, or would they be interested in a partnership with the city to try to get it cleaned up to get that moving, because it is a decent piece of property right in the middle of town, basically, that would be better off something instead of nothing.
Well, it's gonna look even more favorable once the roundabout's in there too.
Sure.
They're gonna have a lot more access.
How long's that been sitting non-used?
Years,
Years, but it's not,
5 years?
at least.
5 to 7, 8 years ago, was it, when they took some stuff out there, Janice, do you remember?
Well,
There was stuff going on back there 7, 8 years ago.
I was gonna say maybe 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
More likely.
Has the EPA
No,
been
it
in
wasn't
there?
the cement factory 3 years ago.
No,
But yes, they were
Um,
using it probably.
as like a parking lot, is about most
No,
of it.
there was, something with, I'm trying to think of his name in there,
Trevor Westrom had some stuff in there,
Yeah,
but mostly he was using it as a parking lot.
Yeah.
As a transfer station, mostly.
Well, there's a ton of frames back in there still,
Yeah,
in some of the buildings, like concrete frames
We're looking at
and
it.
formed frames for
yeah.
modular homes and things like
But
that.
it's probably been,
no, it's only probably been 3, 4 years.
That's within 5 that they've been having activity back there.
Yeah.
But, so I guess that would be my 2 cents, is the Highway 57 issue, then the Community Foundation, and then the Hinterman project. The other stuff will come to us, the ice arena, the different things, if they come up with ideas, they can bring that to us, but I don't think we need to prioritize that.
Anybody else with feedback on that list, or any other items that you'd like to see added?
Well, the Main Street, you're reaching out for some programs, or?
Yeah, so if the EDA wants me to, reach out to Rethos, I think is what their name is now, just to see what kind of programming or expertise they have to offer on Main Street development and programming. But that would definitely involve more, collaboration with, I think, the Chamber and the businesses on Main Street.
Mhm.
I know if you went with a full-fledged Rethos Main Street program, you'd need to have a Main Street coalition set up, similar to, it's another group of local leaders that are only focused on Main Street, so, if that's, you know, what the EDA board wanted me to look into, I can start doing that as well. Or just, you know, even as an initial reach out, just to, so that everybody has better knowledge on what programs exist out there. So, it could just be a feeler or something that you really want me to go after.
It's really hard because I think our Main Street is so broke up, and it's hard to, I'm on Main Street, you're on Main Street, and yet I kind of say, where did Main Street go? Because we're not really Main Street.
Right.
We're sort of main corner, maybe. And even, you know, there's a lot of businesses on Main Street that don't belong to the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's not like the chamber is the answer
Right.
to all, because it's not. But, yeah, it would be,
It's just interesting. Main Street's an interesting dynamic to me, right? I mean, I'm there, I own 3 different properties on Main Street. You're there, you're there, you're there, everybody's there pretty much. Yep.
we're on Main Street.
We've got the Main Street group right here, yeah. But it-
Why aren't we getting something for our own?
But my observations about Main Street and Casson, you get out of it what you put into it, right? So you can either invest in your property and getting the word out about what businesses are there, or you don't. Because some people just aren't interested, they're just there for, they just have their place, they're done, they don't really want more people there, they don't need more, their business doesn't require that. But then I think it comes back to the community loves the idea, whenever it comes up, of a really good, robust Main Street. You know, we love that idea, but then when it comes to putting where your money where your mouth is, we're weak on that. And that has a lot to do with the dynamic of Casson, because 80%, 90% of people work in Rochester, they drive by 500 retail places or whatever on their way home, or on their way to work, or their lunch break. So they love the idea of this nice little bustling downtown in Casson, but when it comes down to it,
They don't want to pay for it.
practically, they just don't, because, you know, when we give other ways out of town, that you don't have to come down 57 now, so that eliminates people from, you know, so it's just this, and I've talked to people on Main Street, and some are maybe interested in something different, but some just aren't willing or wanting to do it, you know, and, you know, the old Lutho's building's a good example, I think. I get, what's that?
Business in there,
I heard that,
yeah.
which is great. You know, I hear from Pat on it, you know, well, nobody's renting. Well, you know, you get out of it what you put into it.
Yep.
You know, a little bit of elbow grease or whatever it be, that you might get more out of it, you know, so Main Street's a tough one for me, and I'm there. But, you know, it takes all we can do to, you know, let people know what's there, and
you know, if we can call it a business model, I mean, the business model of Main Street is completely different. You know, we're dominated by service businesses that are there, you know, and it's not necessarily a destination for retail, you know, so I know, speaking for myself, when I work down there the hours that I do, you know, very few people come to see me. That's my nature of work anyway. But when I'm done, you know, I go back, you know, so I guess the priorities of the businesses might be different, you know, as far as reinvesting and improving it to maybe attract customers, because maybe there's fewer people coming down.
I think we need more retail. I don't care if you put it on
I
Main
agree.
Street, I don't care if
Well-
you put it down in the old Shopko building, I don't care if you put it out here. We need more retail.
I agree.
But there again, it comes down to if businesses want to spend the money to come here. You know, we can try to attract them, but they gotta have the means to stay alive if they do come. You know, and part of the Main Street, as far as I see it, is the parking. I mean, a lot of people, it's okay if it's, you only need 1 or 2 spots to come into it, but to have a retail, where do you park? You can't attract a business. People are gonna drive, oh, it's full, you know. So you don't have that spot where you can get 6, 7 cars to one business.
I thought it was only senior citizens that did that.
Oh, no.
Younger people.
Oh.
Have to walk.
No, a
well,
lot
we're spoiled because people in Casson think walking a block is a long ways to go somewhere. And
it's only getting worse.
the reality of it is not, but
You
I've
walk
got,
the mall and you walk
You'll walk,
2 blocks
and they don't,
to get
yep.
to the
And that's been a struggle too, is, when we had, at the mini mall we gave up years ago, but we just asked all the tenants, could you just not park your personal cars right in front of
Right.
the 5 spots right in front of the mall to save that for everybody's customers? And you do your best to do it, and then every day there's 3 employees or somebody park. You can't tell them they can't park there, but it's like,
Public
Right.
parking.
that's great for, I parked around the block or whatever and walk a block, but, it's just an interesting dynamic downtown. We've got one retail place that we have, but it's, what new products can we bring in to get people in there? So, and it's an interesting.
Bratwurst, you can bring bratwurst in.
So,
Hey,
all right, so we kinda
Sounds
got
like hotcakes.
some priorities for you.
Yeah, I think that gives me something to work with.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know, the question is, how far do you wanna take it in the long
Yeah.
run with Main Street? Because outside of a large-scale market intervention by the city, where we took the entire downtown and make it into a TIF district and actually go after and take out businesses and, redo it, it's very hard for us to force people to wanna fix up their businesses. You just can't do that. You can incentivize them, and that's where we get these facade grants. That's the best thing we can do, really, is tell them, hey, here's free money to beautify your business and repaint your facade and that sort of thing. And, other than that, it's very hard. Those stable loans that we're talking about with the 57 intervention, that's something that we're definitely gonna be looking at, is to try and support the businesses that are there currently, to help them with, 0% interest loans, throughout that 12-month window or whatnot. So, we're definitely listening, and you guys have ideas, please bring them, because, we appreciate that, and, it's good for us to hear what you're thinking, so.
And, Chris, you had a pretty good explanation for the dynamic of Main Street, and maybe that's something I can just look into, case studies of similar situations where, some small towns tried to reactivate their Main Street that had similar situations, just to explore different ideas.
absolutely, I think it's a good idea to, if you come up with something, walk down Main Street, ask the people that are there what they think about it. At least then, can't listen to the whole thing. I get sick of this one. Well, nobody ever did anything, or nobody ever asked, or nobody, hey, here's some ideas, what do you think? That way, 4 years from now, somebody says, oh, it's just not working, my building's empty, I don't have anybody there. Well, here were 9 things we could have tried, but you weren't interested. So, I think that new ideas are always worth listening to.
I'd really like you to find a small town that actually reactivated it.
Yeah, if you could find one.
Just find a couple.
We'll
That's
do it
hard,
this-
ain't it?
Yeah, I'm thinking about all these little towns, Wisconsin, Stewartville maybe.
Yeah, but their downtown's a little different. 'cause
Yeah,
It's tough in the whole area. My
yeah.
wife and I, about 10 years ago, before we bought the variety store, that was like 6 years ago, but about a couple years before that, we just took a road trip for 4 days one time, and we went in a circle of about 150 miles of Casson, and we took a map, and we highlighted towns that were between 3,000 and 7,000 people, to kind of get the idea of the same town. And we drove through, I don't know how many towns, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, pretty much we limited to, and we drove through every town that was about that population in 4 days. We were on the road 15 hours a day, and we'd drive down their main streets, and we'd write down every type of business that was on their main street. What did they have? Did it look busy? Did, stop into a diner, have a sandwich? What's business like, whatever? And the biggest role to us, and this is our unscientific study, right, was that the further away from a large population center, the more thriving their Main Street was. And that doesn't take a genius to figure it out, right? I can be to Rochester in 12 minutes on West Circle Drive and have 15 banks, 25 restaurants, Walmart, Home Depot, all the big retail things. Our Main Street's gonna be tougher to get vibrant compared to some of the ones in Iowa that the closest big city is Mason City, and they're 50 miles away.
Why is every little town up north got 4 stoplights, Walmart, and a movie theater? Going,
Right, so it was just interesting how that closeness, and then what jobs they have in town. The ones who had a more vibrant downtown had a couple manufacturing plants that employed 80 people or 100 people or 200 people. So it was just interesting to see, if you find some that are within 15 miles of a 100,000 population area, that most of the people don't work there, they don't have big manufacturing, I'll go spend a week and find out what's going on. So, just because I want to see it.
Because you can't believe it.
border wall in front of
So.
Rochester.
All right,
Ooh.
so we gotta
We gotta save the wall first, we
Ideas
can't
there.
build a wall.
So we can move down to our downtown TIF fees.
So every year, TIF District 1-17, which is where the EDA mini lots are, pays an annual fee for publication in the paper as required by the state, and an administrative fee due to the city. The finance administrator let me know about this, and she just asked for a blanket motion from the EDA to approve payments for the two fees.
How much longer is that TIF fee? You know, it's a,
25 years, maybe?
And that was 2009 when they set it up.
Yeah, it's a long,
okay.
that's the 40-year TIF. As part of the shop go, it was part of Folkstad. The whole
Okay.
thing was all kind of...
So moved.
Second.
Third. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank
Can't be their
you.
rule, you don't have a choice.
We'll move on to our coordinator's report.
Okay, got some notes here I'll read through. So I visited businesses last week and dropped off over 60 applications around town, and there was a notable increase in businesses asking me questions about the grant, but also applications submitted following
Nice.
the outreach, so that was positive to see. And I just want to share this with the board. If you talk to anybody about this grant program, I'm recommending them, if they're on the fringe of eligibility, to apply anyways, because after this February 14th deadline, if there are still funds remaining for the grant program, I expect the county to lower eligibility requirements. So if businesses are already in the system, then it's easier for me to go through and say, oh, they're eligible now, they can get a grant award. And there's also an opportunity on the grant application for businesses to describe how COVID has impacted them. And I know a lot of the commissioners are really interested in reading through those, whether the grant award is given or not to the business. So just wanted to share that with you.
And just to piggyback on that, so we talked to several people that you've dropped the applications off for, and we're also doing the same thing, encouraging them to all apply. The
Mhm.
big hurdle for a lot of them is the 3 full-time employee
Yeah,
one.
and that's what I'm
I've
hearing.
told all of them that didn't have 3 full-time employees, or they were a single shop owner, no employees, I said, apply anyway, because that way if there's funds left and you don't, because
Right.
that 3 full-time employee hurdle was
Equivalency,
really
yeah.
tough. That precluded a lot of people that were really,
It's a big business. It is.
that
Well, and
were
the-
hit by it pretty hard that don't qualify
That's how
automatically.
the county board wanted to prioritize it, and if
Yep.
funds were remaining, then lower that for sole proprietors and businesses like that. So how it works now is I've got, if they're on, I number each application as it comes in, and if I see it's just a sole proprietor, I put a hold on it, so that if we drop eligibility requirements, I will revisit that
Good.
application.
I just wanted you to be able, if you had any influence at the board or
Yeah, and that's
feedback
what
to
I'll
them,
share
that
with them.
that's the biggest hurdle for some of the folks, is that
I
3
get it.
full-time
That'd be
employee
hard.
thing.
Right.
There's many of them that do it
I have
part-time.
5 part-time, but I don't
Right.
have 3 full-time.
Right, exactly.
Well, that'd be a good way to do it
Wall
with
preservation
equivalencies.
grants, pardon?
I mean, did they look at equivalencies? The
So
point
that's
that
what I'm
Janice just
gonna-
made there.
We're meeting tomorrow morning, the
Doesn't say
EDA
it on there.
Mm-mm, it says
the
3
EDA
full-time
committee,
employees.
and I'm gonna recommend that, if you got 1 employee or 1 full-time and 6 part-time, that you maybe 2 part-time employees equals 1 full-time.
Right, I mean, I think the equivalencies would be a good thing to add if
Yeah.
they're gonna make some changes there, because like she said, I mean, different times of the year, they employ different numbers of people, but it's still a big contribution,
Yeah.
so.
And some employees want to be part-time.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some employees won't be anything but part-time.
Yeah. I'd love to.
So moving on, wall preservation grants, I've been in touch with some community members. I'll be looking into possible grants this week and next week, and hopefully get some applications out by the end of the month. The loan review committee met with Trail Creek Coffee Roasters. The meeting went well, and we kind of came to an understanding on next steps. The business will look into what their financial capacity is for a purchase of the building, and then we'll kind of revisit the discussion and see what other assistance they might need to get this project through, and that, could possibly be an EDA gap financing loan or something like that. CEDA Market Intelligence Dashboard Tool, no updates. I did reach out to Tracy asking for approximate timelines on completion, so hopefully I'll hear from her soon. Butler Co-working, I met with Ed Butler, and he's brought on Beth Sheridan to manage the co-working space project. Tim and I will be meeting with Beth this afternoon to discuss opportunities for the EDA to support their venture. The hockey, it's kind of later on in the agenda, so we'll, just to save on redundancies. The Post Bulletin article is available. If you don't have a subscription to the Post Bulletin, couldn't read it, let me know. I can make a PDF for you if you're interested. And for those who missed the last meeting, Dan Egler will be EDA President, Mike Peterson Vice President, and myself will continue as Secretary. And I'll also add that I plan to attend a chamber meeting, likely in March, to discuss EDA programs that are available, such as the facade improvement program, and what the EDA's priorities for 2021 are. And that could involve, just putting it out on their radar, Highway 57 reconstruction. It's coming down the road, literally. So, just get that in their minds to start thinking about what they might like, what some of the businesses might like to see for assistance to get through that. And that wraps it up for the coordinator's report.
On to the, city administrator's report, which is included.
Sure, you've got that. I just have one extra thing to add there, and I'm going to email this out, or have Nicholas email it out to the EDA. The city is working on a public facilities program, including potential upgrades, potentially to public safety facilities, other things like that. They're working with a consultant called ICS, which is the firm they're working with. They have a public engagement meeting scheduled for February 10th. It's going to be a Zoom meeting. That's the best way they could find to get as many people from the public involved. So I'll send information out to the EDA board. We're looking for members of the public. We have, put it in a newsletter and things like that to try and advertise it, but we also want to encourage anyone who has any interest in, the fire hall project or police or city hall or whatnot to participate. You can kind of give your feedback on what you think is the best priority. So I'll send that out to the board as well, so you guys can see that. And if you can work it into your schedule, I think it's going to be like 4:30 on the 10th. So just so you have that.
Thank you, Tim. We'll go on to our other business, and we'll start with the Dodge County Youth Hockey Subcommittee.
Yeah, so 2 things to go over. I heard back from 3 board members when I asked who is interested in being on the subcommittee. Mike and Janice have expressed interest, but since I didn't hear from everybody, I just wanted to put it out there, if you missed the email or something like that, whether you're interested. Otherwise, I think we can go ahead and form the subcommittee.
Perhaps our new member from the chamber would be a good ad for that as well.
Yeah, I can reach out to him and ask.
Okay.
Who's that going to be?
Matt Hemker.
Oh, okay. Is he the Farm Bureau person?
Yeah, Farm Bureau guy.
Okay.
Okay.
And his office is in?
Dodge Center.
Dodge Center.
That, we'll move then on to your 2021 Smith contribution.
Yep, so we budgeted $500 to contribute to Smith this year, so just get a motion from the board to approve that contribution.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. After that, we got just any items for the March EDA meeting.
I got a list here I'll read through, and if anybody else has anything to add. I received a facade improvement application late last week that'll be on next month's agenda. Possibly Butler Co-working, should they have a request of the EDA. 2021 priorities, more specific objectives, just kind of talking, what things can we achieve to move towards those objectives. Gibbs tax abatement, and then possible updates on wall grants.
Right. A lot of roles you're filling.
Perfect. And then that is it. We'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everybody, and next meeting is March 2nd.
It's already February.
Yeah, well, thankfully, this will be our coldest week I think we've had all winter here this week.
Wait till this week. Wait till Friday, Saturday.